Welcome back and welcome to part 3 of this tutorial series where we're creating this Sci-Fi Security Drone in Blender. So in parts 1 and 2 we did most of the modeling, and in this part we're going to finish up the modeling. And as I mentioned in the other parts, if you'd like to purchase the finished project files of this tutorial, then you can do that over on my Gumroad store and my Patreon page. I will have the links in the description. And that's a great way to help support this channel. And some great ways to help support the channel here on YouTube is by checking out the YouTube memberships by clicking on the join button right down there next to the subscribe button. And if you join my memberships, you'll be helping to support the channel monthly and you'll get some cool perks here on YouTube. And if you're enjoying this tutorial series and you'd like to give me a little tip, you can also use the super thanks feature here on YouTube. And also before we start, I wanted to let you know about my Blender tutorial courses on Gumroad. So I have a tutorial course on my Gumroad store on how to create this Martian environment in Blender, and then I have another tutorial course on my Gumroad store on how to create this sci-fi space station corridor. And both of those tutorial series are step by step in real time, just like this tutorial. So if you like creating sci-fi environments in Blender, then definitely check out those courses. So let's start by creating the little lights here, which are on the front of the robot. So I'm just going to select this object and then I'm going to press the tab key to go into edit mode. I'm now going to press Shift A, make sure you press Shift A in edit mode, and I'm going to add a circle. Now right next to me, if you click on the add circle settings right here, I want the vertices to just be set to 16 so it is lower detail, and then I can close the add cylinder settings. Now we have the mirror modifier and the clipping turned on, so if I try to bring this over, you can see it's merging with the mirror. So I need to click off the clipping, then I can scale this down and just bring that over, scale it down. And now that that's out of the center there, I can just click back on the clipping here on the mirror, just turn the clipping on. So I can now bring this up and I'm going to scale that down and just kind of stick it right here on the side, kind of on that side plating. I can also press 1 on the numpad and I'm going to zoom in here, and I can hold down the Z button, go to wireframe, and I'm going to press R to rotate. And let's rotate this on the x-axis, and I'm going to type in 90 and then enter. And I'm going to scale this down, and I'll press G to grab and just stick that there, and then scale it down a bit more, just fit it to the reference. All right, back over to solid view. I'm going to zoom in here. Let's press 3 on the numpad for side view, and I can go back into wireframe so I can see where that is. And I want to bring it out, so I'm going to press G to grab. Let's bring this out on the y-axis. Bring that back there, and then I can press E to extrude. We're going to bring this on the y-axis and stick it in there. And then let's navigate back over here to the front, hold down the Z button, go back to solid view, and I want to hold down the Alt key and just select that loop right there. And then I want to press E to extrude, and then I'm going to press S to scale. We're going to scale this down. Then I'm going to press E to extrude, and let's bring it back on the y-axis, stick that there. And then I can press the F key to fill a face there. And then I can press the tab key to go back to object mode. And you can see that it needs to be shaded smooth. So using the object context menu, I can just click on shade smooth. All right, tap back into edit mode. I can hover my mouse over this object and press the L key to select the linked vertices. And I actually want to bring it over to the side a little bit so that it is more even. All right, so I can now press 3 on the numpad for side view and just go into the wireframe view, and I can press Shift D to duplicate, and I want to stick another one down here, so make it a little bit farther back, go back to solid view. So if I press the tab key to go back to object mode, you can now see we have those 2 lights there. And I think I might actually bring this one up a little bit more in edit mode. All right, that is better. Now I also want to make kind of like some headlights up here on the top of the robot, but I do want that to be a separate object. So make sure you are in object mode. I'm now going to press Shift S. Let's go to cursor to world origin just to make sure the cursor is in the very center there. So I can now press Shift A, and I'm going to go here to mesh, and I'm going to add a cylinder. And then before you click away from the cylinder or move it around, right after you add the cylinder, click on the arrow to open up the add cylinder settings. And let's just change this to 16 vertices here so it's a bit lower poly, and I can just close that. Now normally I would press the tab key to go into edit mode and then I would move this over. But in this case, I actually want to model it up and down, and then I want to be able to rotate the object over. So what I'm going to do is go back to object mode, and I'm just going to bring this up and scale it down over here. Now you might be wondering how the mirror modifier is going to work if the object's origin is in the center there, but let's actually click on add modifier, and under generate I can add the mirror modifier, and you can see the mirror isn't showing up because it's mirroring it over there in the center. So basically the mirror is just overlapping the original geometry, but instead of using the object's origin, I can instead use the mirror object here in the mirror modifier settings. So I'm going to click right here on the eyedropper, and then I'm going to select the main body object. So this way, instead of it mirroring from the object's origin, it's going to mirror from the center of wherever this object is. So I can move this object and then it's going to move the mirror. Or I can just move this object in object mode and it's going to mirror from the center of the body object. Now, just like the other objects, I want to add a bevel modifier onto this object. So I'm going to click on this object right here. Let's click on add modifier, and I'm going to go right down here under generate and add the bevel. It's the second one. Now I want to use the same amount. So if I click right here, the segments is 3 and the amount is 0.002. So I'm going to click on this object right here, and on this amount here, I'm going to type in 0.002 and hit enter. And then also on the segments here, I'm going to bring this up to 3. Now if I zoom in here, you can see that the bevel is very, very small, and that's because we scaled the object down in object mode. So I just need to apply the scale. So with this object selected, you can press Ctrl A, and then I'm going to click on scale. Now you can see that bevel is quite a bit bigger. And then using the object context menu, I can shade the object smooth. So I'm just going to bring this object down here a bit closer, and then I'm going to press 1 on the numpad to go to front view. Now you can see this is rotated over, but if I modeled it while it was rotated over, that would be kind of hard to model. So I'm first going to model it going up and down, and then once the modeling is finished, I can rotate it over. So I'm going to press the tab key to go into edit mode. I'm going to click right up here to go to the face select, and I'm just going to select this face. So I can press G to grab. Let's bring this down on the Z axis and bring that down there. Then I'm going to select this top face here, and I can press the I key, and that's going to inset the face, and I can bring that down and stick it there. And then I'm going to press E to extrude, and let's extrude this up and just make it about that big. So I now want to add a cube object. So in edit mode, I'm going to press Shift A, and let's go right here and add a cube. And then make sure you're in edit mode when you do this so it adds it within the object. I can press S to scale and G to grab, and I'm just going to bring the cube up and kind of stick it here on the top. So scale that down and just stick it here on the top. I can press 1 on the numpad for front view, and I'm going to scale this down even more. And I'm actually going to press the A key to select everything, and I'm going to scale the whole thing down a little bit because I think it's a bit too big. Alright, so I'm now going to hover my mouse over the cube and press the L key. That's going to select the linked vertices, and I can press 1 on the numpad for front view, and I'm going to bring this into the center there of the cylinder. And then I'll press S to scale. Let's scale this down on the Z axis and scale that down. And I can also bring this down on the Z axis and stick it in there. And then I want to add some loop cuts here on the side. So I'm going to press Ctrl R to add a loop cut. And then I can scroll the mouse wheel to make 2. And I can left click and right click so it stays in the center there. Then I want to scale this up. So I'll hit S to scale. Let's scale it up on the X axis. And I'm going to make that a bit longer and place that there. And then hover your mouse over the cube and press the L key. That'll select the linked vertices, and I want to make it a bit longer. So let's scale this all on the Z axis and make that a bit bigger. And I can also scale the whole thing up and bring it up a little bit. Alright, let's press 3 on the numpad to go to side view, hold down the Z button, go to wireframe so I can see the wireframe, and I actually want to tab to go back to object mode, and then I want to press G to grab, click with my mouse wheel to constrain it to the y-axis, and bring this over here so I can kind of compare it better to the reference. So I can tab to go back into edit mode, and we still have the cube selected. So I'm going to bring the cube over on the y-axis and bring it out to about there, kind of aligning up with the reference. And then I want to click right here to go to the Vertex Select, and I just want to deselect the front so I can bring the back. So I'm going to press B for the box select, and then I'm going to click and drag with the middle mouse wheel and drag over the front and then let go. That's going to deselect it, and I can press G to grab. I'm going to click with my mouse wheel to constrain it to the y-axis and stick it there. Then I can press E to extrude. We're going to extrude that back and hit S to scale and scale that in. Hold down the Z button, go back to solid view, and we now have a pretty cool object there for the headlights. Now this front part here, I want to inset it and extrude it back. So you can press the 3 on the top of your keyboard to go to the face select. I'm going to select this face, hold down the shift key, and select these other faces. I'm going to press the I key to inset those faces, and I'm going to bring them in just a little bit, not too far, right about there. And then I can press E to extrude, that's going to extrude it back in, and I'll just stick that there. And then press the tab key to go into object mode, and using the object context menu, I can shade this smooth. And I'm going to press the 1 on the numpad to go to front view, and I can zoom in here. I'm now going to press R to rotate, and then G to grab, and I'm going to bring this down and then scale it down and just fit it to the reference. And this is why using the mirror object in this case can be very helpful, because you can see that this object is actually a bit too high up and I actually want to bring it down a bit. So I can press the tab key to go to edit mode. I'm going to click right here to go to the Vertex Select, and I can press the A key to deselect the vertices. I'm going to go into wireframe by holding down the Z button, going into wireframe, and then I'm actually going to press the C key, and that's going to bring up the circle select, and I can scroll my mouse wheel to make the circle bigger, and then I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to go back and forth here and select all the vertices here, which are on the top of the headlight. And then I can press the escape key to get rid of the circle select. Now normally, because this object is rotated over, I couldn't bring it down on the Z axis. I would just kind of need to eyeball it, so just bring it down and kind of stick it there, but it might be a bit off to the side. But because we rotated it over in object mode, it still has a local Z axis. So the object has its own Z axis, which is separate from the world's axis. So I can press G to grab, and then if I hit Z, that's just going to bring it on the global Z, but if I hit the Z key again, that is going to bring it up and down on the local Z, so the object's Z axis. And I'm going to bring that down and then just place it right about there. So I can tab to go back to object mode and kind of zoom out there, and there we go. So we now have some cool headlights on the top of the robot. And I think I'm going to press 1 to go to front view. I actually think I might rotate this over and bring it up a little bit. I think it might look a little bit better if the headlights are just a little bit higher on the head. So let's press Ctrl S to save, and now let's model the guns. So I want the guns to be a separate object, so make sure you are back in object mode. So I can actually start by using this object here. So just select the headlights, and I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, and I can bring it down on the Z axis and stick it there. And then I want to clear the object's rotation because we rotated the object over, but we didn't actually apply the rotation. So what I can do is press Alt R, and Alt R is going to clear the rotation. So now it's pointed up and down. And then I can press the tab key to go into edit mode, and I'm going to zoom in here. I'll press the A key to deselect everything. So just press the L key to select the linked vertices with your mouse hovered over the object. And I'm going to press X to delete, and we can delete the vertices. So now we just have this piece here. I'm going to press 1 on the numpad to go to front view so I can see what this is looking like. And I'm going to press the A key to select everything. Make sure you are in edit mode, and I want to scale this up. So I'm going to hit S to scale that up. And then I want to rotate this over by 180 degrees so it is going down instead of up. So I'm going to hit R to rotate. I'm going to type in 180 for 180 degrees and then hit enter. So now it is pointed down. And I can also bring this up on the Z axis. So this is going to be a ball and socket joint. So I want to add a sphere, and then we're going to duplicate the sphere and make another one. So I'm going to select this bottom face here, and then I'm going to press Shift S, and I'm going to go to cursor to selected. So I can now press Shift A, and I'm going to go right here and add a UV sphere, and I'm doing this in edit mode so that the sphere is in the edit mode of the other object. I'm now going to press S to scale. Let's scale this way down, and I can press 1 on the numpad to go to front view, and I'm going to scale this down even smaller, and then I want to press G and Z, bring it down on the Z axis. I might scale this up a little bit bigger, something like that. Now I want to delete the bottom part of the sphere so that we can actually add the other piece, which the gun will be connecting to. So I'm going to click right here to go to the Vertex Select, and let's hold down the Z button and go into wireframe. I'm going to press A to deselect everything, and I'm going to press B for the box select, and I want to box select 6 of these loops. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to click and drag right here to select all of those loops. Then I can press X to delete, and I want to delete the vertices. reference. So I can hold down the Z button, go into solid view, and I'm going to navigate down here, and you can see there's a hole here. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just select that loop right there. And I'm going to press E to extrude and then S to scale, and we're going to scale that down just like that, place it there. Then I can press E to extrude. We're going to hit Z to bring it up on the Z axis, and I can scale it up a little bit. And then I can extrude it up again on the Z axis and bring it up, and maybe scale this down a little bit. Now, because we're going to have the other socket joint in here, we don't need to model this all the way. So what I can do is just press the F key to fill that, because you're not really going to be able to see in there. So I can tab to go back to object mode, and then using the object context menu, I can shade this smooth. So I now want to add the other socket, and I want it to be in the very center here. And that way when I rotate the gun object, it'll look like it's rotating in the socket. So I'm going to press the tab key to go into edit mode, and then I want to select the very center of the sphere. So hold down the Alt key, and we're going to select this loop right here. So just Alt select the loop, and why I'm selecting this one is because it's in the very center. So you can see this loop is the biggest on the edge. This is the biggest part here, and then it starts to get smaller again. So I'm going to press Shift S. Let's go to cursor to selected so that the 3D cursor is in the very center there of the selection. So I can now press Shift A, and we're going to add another UV sphere, and I'm doing this in edit mode. So I can press S to scale, and we're going to scale this way down, and I'm just going to continue to scale this down until it's in the very center of the ball and socket joint. So there we go. So now I'll be able to rotate this, and it's going to rotate perfectly inside that ball and socket joint. Now I want this sphere here to be its own object so that when we actually animate it, it'll be able to rotate separately from the other object. So with the inner sphere selected, I'm going to press the P key, and then I'm going to click on selection. So I can tab to go back to object mode. I can use the object context menu to shade this smooth, and you can see that this is now its own object. So I can now model the gun inside this object. So I'll press the tab key to go into edit mode. So what I'm going to do is hold down the Alt key and just select one of these loops here, and I'm going to press 3 on the numpad to go to side view. And you can see the reference isn't really fitting it correctly, and that's because if I go to the front view, kind of zoom in here, you can see this is rotating over and then rotating down. So what I can do is I can press 3 on the numpad for side view. I can tab to go back to object mode, and then I can actually just click right here to select the reference, and I can just move it down and we can use it for the modeling. So I'm going to press G to grab, and let's bring this down, and I'm going to stick it right there and just align up the reference with the model. So just like that. So we can now use the reference to model the gun. So I'm going to select this object again, press the tab key to go into edit mode, and I want to add a cylinder object. So what I'm going to do is press the A key to select everything. I can press Shift S, and then I can go to cursor to selected. And this way, when we add the object, the cylinder is going to be added in the very center of the sphere. So I can press Shift A, and I'm going to go right here and add a cylinder. Now right next to me on the add cylinder settings, if you click on that little arrow to open it up here, I want to make sure the vertices is 16, and then I can click on this to close that. So I can now press S to scale, and I want to scale this way down, just fit it to the size of the reference. I can press G to grab and bring it down on the Z axis and just stick that right in there. And then just scale it down a little bit more. Tab it to go back to object mode, and then using the object context menu, I can shade that smooth. Tab back into edit mode, and we still have that cylinder selected. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate it, bring it down. I can press R to rotate. Let's type in 90 and then enter to rotate it over by 90 degrees. And I'm going to scale this up and fit it to the reference just like that. And then I can also scale this on the Y axis. So just bring that out there, maybe scale that down a little bit. And then I want to extrude this out and scale that down. So I'm going to hold down the Z button, go into wireframe, and I can press the A key to deselect everything. And I'm going to press B for the box select and just box select that loop there. So I can now press E to extrude. Let's extrude that out. And then S to scale. We're going to scale that down, place it there. And let's do the same thing for the other side. So A to deselect, B for the box select. I'm just going to box select that loop right there. And then I can press E to extrude, extrude that out. And then S to scale, we're going to scale that down. All right, now I also want to add some other details on the gun. So with that still selected, I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, click and hold with my mouse wheel. I'm going to bring that over, and I can press S to scale. We're just going to scale that up there. And then I can press E to extrude. We're going to extrude that out and bring that over there. And then just make sure you hover your mouse over that object and press the L key. That'll select the linked vertices. I can press Shift D to duplicate, click with my mouse wheel to constrain it to the Y-axis and stick that there. All right, and then I want to duplicate this again and make this metal cylinder here coming out. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, click with my mouse wheel, bring it over here, and then I can scale the entire thing down and just make it fit the size of the reference, and I can bring this back on the y-axis. Then I'm going to press B for the box select, and I'm going to click and drag with my middle mouse wheel. That is going to deselect everything that was in the selection here in the box. So now we just have this front part selected. So I can press G to grab, click with your mouse wheel, constrain it to the y-axis, and bring that out there. And then I'm going to hold down the Z button, go back to solid view, and I'm going to navigate over here, and I'm going to press the I key to inset this and just bring it in a little bit. And then I'm going to press E to extrude, and we're just going to extrude this somewhat far back, just like that. But we are going to be adding some more details right in here. Now let's also add those little details there around the cylinder, so I can actually just use this object here. So press the A key to make sure everything is deselected. Hover your mouse over this object and press L to select the linked vertices. I can press 3 on the numpad for side view. Let's duplicate this, so Shift D to duplicate. And let's bring this over on the y-axis. I can hold down the Z button to go to wireframe, and then I want to scale the whole thing down a bit. And then I can also scale this on the y-axis and make it a bit bigger, just like that. All right, now I want to duplicate this and bring it over here. So you can press Shift D to duplicate, bring it over on the y-axis, and we're going to stick that there. All right, go back into solid view, and now we have those two little parts there. And I think I want to scale these down a bit smaller, so I'll hit S to scale, make that a bit smaller, and then also press the A key to deselect. You can press the L key with your mouse hovered over that object and scale that down a bit more. All right, that is better. So the next thing that I want to do is add another cylinder object, which is coming here. So what I'm going to do is zoom in. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just select that loop of faces right there. I'm going to go over here to the side, and I can duplicate these faces, and I'm going to bring them out on the y-axis. And then I can scale them down so that they are smaller. And let's press 1 on the numpad to go to front view, and I can scale this down a bit more, so about there. So I now want to extrude this back in, so I can press E to extrude. Let's extrude that back in, place that there. And then we have some extra faces in there that we don't need. We don't actually need those faces. So I can press X to delete, and then we can delete the faces. All right, I'm gonna hold down the Z button to go back into solid view. And then you can see that that piece right there needs to go farther back. So I'm gonna go right here to the Vertex Select, hold down the Alt key and select that loop of vertices. I'll press G to grab, click with your mouse wheel, bring it back on the y-axis, and just stick it in there. And then also I want this piece to be extruded up and out. So hold down the Alt key, select that loop right there. I can press E to extrude and then S to scale and scale that up and place that there. All right, so now we have that back face in there. And then we also need to recalculate the normals. I can tell because the shading is a little bit weird. This is darker, whereas this is lighter. So press the A key to select everything, and I can press Shift N to recalculate the normals. Now you can see that this object does look just a little bit blocky, so I do want to smooth this out. So right over here on the modifier properties, let's click on add modifier, and I'm going to add the subdivision surface modifier. It's right down here under generate subdivision surface. And then if you scroll down here, I just want to make the levels viewport and render just set to 1. Now if I try to rotate this object, you can see it is kind of laggy because it has a lot of detail. It has the bevel and the subdivision surface. So just to hide this from the viewport, I can click on this little button right here. It looks like a computer monitor, and that's going to hide the subdivision surface modifier from the viewport, but it will still show up when it renders. All right, now there's one more part that I want to model to the gun. I want to model a little cube object down here. So I'm going to press 3 on the numpad to go to side view. I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I can press Shift A, and I'm going to add a cube in edit mode. Let's press 1 on the numpad to go to front view. I'm going to zoom out here, and then I can press S to scale, and I'm going to scale this way down, and I can bring this down here, and I'm just going to bring it to the bottom there. Now you can see that the front reference isn't really helping us because it's higher up, so I can just tab to go back to object mode. I can select the front reference, and I can press G to grab and just kind of bring this down here and just fit it right there. And then I can hold down the Z button and go into wireframe, and then this way I can actually use that to help us model to get the shape right. So I can select this object again, tab to go back into edit mode, and we still have the cube selected. So I'm going to bring this cube up on the Z-axis, bring it there, and then scale it down a bit and stick it right about there. And then I'm going to press A to deselect. I can press B for the box select, just box select those vertices. I can press G to grab. Let's bring this up on the Z-axis like that. And then I also want to scale this, so hit S to scale. I'm going to click with my mouse wheel to constrain it to the X-axis and bring that down. Then I want to add a loop cut in here so it kind of goes out to the side before going in. So I can press Control R to add a loop cut. I can left click, bring that up, and then left click again. Then I can scale this, and I'm going to click with my middle mouse wheel to constrain it to the X-axis and stick that there. All right, hold down the Z button, go back into solid view. And if I zoom out here, you can see that the cube is actually inside here. If I go into wireframe, there's the cube, and we actually want to bring it over here. So press the A key to deselect everything, and with your mouse hovered over this object, you can press the L key. That's going to select the linked vertices, and I can press 3 on the numpad for side view, and I want to bring this over. So I'll press G to grab, click with my mouse wheel to constrain it to the Y-axis, and we're going to stick that there. I can press B for the box select, and I'm going to click with my middle mouse wheel, drag over and let go just to deselect that side. And I can press G to grab, click with my mouse wheel, and bring that back and just stick it there. All right, hold down the Z button, go back into solid view, and that is looking good. Now you can see right here that we're actually able to see that cube in the center there. So I'm just going to add a loop cut in here and bring it down just so that you can't see it. So to do this, I'm going to press Control R to add a loop cut. I can scroll my mouse wheel out until there are 3, and then I can left click and then right click so they stay in the center. Then I'm going to press 1 on the numpad to go to front view. I'm going to hold down the Z button and go to wireframe. And I'm going to press B for the box select, click and drag to deselect those vertices, and B for the box select, click and drag with my middle mouse wheel and let go to deselect those. And then also B for the box select, click and drag with the middle mouse wheel and let go just to deselect that. And I can go back into solid view. So I'm going to press G to grab, bring it down the Z-axis, and I just want to bring this down all the way and just place it there. So now if I zoom in here, you can see that it's going down. If I go into wireframe, you can see that's better. So I can actually press the L key with my mouse hovered over that cube, and you can see that this object is now going down. It kind of has a heart shape. All right, tab back into object mode, and that's looking good. So the modeling of the gun is finished, so I'm now going to place it on the drone. So I'm going to select this object here, hold down the shift key and select this object. And I can press 1 on the numpad for front view, and I'm just going to select this reference and I'm just going to align it back up. So I'm going to press G to grab, bring it back up there, and I'm just going to align it with the 3D model. I can also press 3 on the numpad for side view, just select the reference, and I can press G to grab, bring it up on the Z-axis, and just align it to the model and bring it back a bit. All right, 1 on the numpad for front view. I'm going to select this object, hold down the shift key, select this object. I can press G to grab, move this up. Now I want to select this object and I want to rotate it over, but I don't want to rotate it over from the center here because that's not actually where the joint would normally rotate. So I actually want to change the origin point to be in the center of where it's actually going to rotate. So first I'm going to select the bottom object. I'm going to tab to go into edit mode. I can press the A key to deselect everything, and I'm going to hover my mouse over the sphere here and press the L key to select the linked vertices. I'm now going to press Shift S, and I'm going to go to cursor to selected, so the cursor's in the center there. And then I can tab to go back to object mode. Now I want both of these objects to rotate from where the 3D cursor is. So just select both of the objects, and with both of the objects selected, I can click on object, and I'm going to go here to set origin, and I'm going to set origin to the 3D cursor. So now if I select this object and double tap the R key, you can see that looks correct. So it's using the ball and socket joint. That looks good. And then if I select this object, I can double tap the R key and rotate that as well. So they're both rotating from the center of the sphere. So I can now press 1 on the numpad for front view. I can select this object. I can press R to rotate, and I'm just going to rotate this over and stick it there. And then this object here, I also want to rotate this up a little bit because I don't want the gun to be overlapping that hinge. So go to front view and just kind of rotate that back a little bit. Then you can select both of the objects and you can move them. Also, if you want to scale them, you can. I like the size of those guns, but you could make them bigger or smaller. And then I'm just going to stick them right in there. All right, so there we have it. So I can zoom out here, and I'm going to press Control S to save, and the modeling is finished. So just press Control S again to save the Blender file. And this is going to wrap it up for part 3 of the tutorial series. So I hope you've been enjoying this so far, and I hope you were easily able to follow along, and thank you so much for watching. And in the next part, in part 4, we are going to be doing the lighting and the materials. So to watch part 4, I'll have it right up there on the end screen, and also the link in the video description when it is released. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next part, part 4.